Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna again. Thank you all for joining this Saturday morning Bhagavatam discussion. So today's verse is from Canto 1, Chapter 5, verse number 32. So we will start with the recitation of the verse first. Let me share my screen. Can you all see my slide?
Yes, Mataji.
Thank you. All right, so the verse is Srimad Bhagavatam 1:5-32. Recite the verse. Etat samsuchitam brahmams tapatraya sigichitam yad ishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam. Etat samsuchitam brahmams tapatraya sigichitam yad ishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam. I'll recite one more time. Etat samsuchitam brahmam tapatreya sigichitam yat ishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam. Can I request few of the devotees to recite the verse, please?
Etat samsuchitam brahmam tapatraya chikitsitam yad ishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam.
Thank you, Prabhu. Someone else?
Okay, go ahead, Prabhu. Etat samusitam brahmams apatraya chikirtsitam yadishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mataji.
Etat samsuchitam brahmam tapatraya chikischitam yad ishvare bhagavati karma brahmani bhavitam.
Thank you, Prabhu. We'll move on to the word-to-word translation. Etat, this much. Samsuchitam, decided by the learned. Brahman, O Brahmana Vyasa. Tapatraya, three kinds of miseries. Sigichitam, remedial measures. Yat, what? Ishvare, the supreme controller. Bhagavati, unto the personality of Godhead. Karma, one's prescribed activities. Brahmani, unto the great. Bhavitam, dedicated. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O Brahmana Vyasadeva, it is decided by the learned that the best remedial measure for removing all troubles and miseries is to dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So I'll read the translation again. O Brahmana Vyasadeva, it is decided by the learned that the best remedial measure for removing all troubles and miseries is to dedicate one's activities to the service of the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The purport is a little long, this purport. So I thought instead of reading the whole purport on one stretch, I divided the purport into categories like a subtitle. As we go along, we can discuss. The words or the essence, the important words or the essence from the shloka, I picked these four words. Tapatraya, which is three kinds of miseries. Traya means three, tapa means miseries. So tapatraya is three kinds of miseries. Sigichitam, remedial measures. So that's one. And then the next word is samsuchitam, decided by the learned. Karma, in this context, the karma is one's prescribed activities. So these are the four words we're going to focus on today. Mainly the tapatraya and sigichitam. But let's read Prabhupada's purport. Prabhupada mentions beautifully about all these four important words. Let's start with the purport now. So Prabhupada start with hearing is the remedial process, because the essence of the verse is that if one wants to get rid of the miseries and troubles, they have to dedicate their prescribed activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. That's the essence of the verse. And the context is, we all know this chapter, Vyasadeva completed compiling all the Vedas, including Vedanta Sutra. He was despondent. So Narada Muni come to his ashram, and his Vyasadeva is inquiring from Narada Muni, tell me about my reason for my despondency. And Narada Muni explains, you need to exclusively write about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After he explains that, he describes his past life when he was born as a son of a maid servant, and how he got association of the Bhakti Vedantas, the sages, who were staying there for 4 months during the rainy season. How he heard, the first thing was hearing from them. Second, he was doing menial service to them. And then he, with their permission, he ate their remnants. And then also his qualities, he explains, how he was, his qualities, how it attracted them. And then before they left, they initiated him. Also, they taught him the last 2 verses about the confidential knowledge of pure bhakti. So after explaining all that to Vyasadeva, now he's saying that the remedial, they also taught me that dedicating one's prescribed activities to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the way to get rid of the troubles and miseries. So Prabhupada write in the purport, the first thing is hearing is the remedial process. So as I said before, sorry, I'm going to move this so I can see the slide properly. So well, as we go in the purport, sorry, the next slide, we'll discuss also. So hearing is the remedial process. Sri Narada Muni personally experienced that the most feasible and practical way to open the path of salvation or get relief from all miseries of life is to hear submissively the transcendental activities of the Lord from the right and bona fide sources. This is the only remedial process. So, we know from Narada Muni's life, so hearing, and again, how was the hearing? Very submissive. And about what? The transcendental activities of the Lord. And from what sources? A right and a bona fide sources. That's the only remedial process. So after that, Prabhupada explained the 3 kinds of, he mentions 3 kinds of miseries. The entire material existence is full of miseries. Foolish people have manufactured out of their tiny brains many remedial measures for removing the 3-fold miseries pertaining to the body and mind, pertaining to the natural disturbances, and in relation to other living beings. So in the material world, as long as we have a material body, as long as we are in the material world, it doesn't matter where we are, whether we are in India or America, advanced countries, whether we are in upper planetary systems like Brahmaloka, or whether we are in the lower planetary system, wherever we are, as long as we are in the material realm, there is going to be miseries. And there is no point in trying to get rid of the miseries. We need to, go above that, the eternal solution, not just fixing the problem. And Prabhupada writes the 3 kinds of miseries here. We all know about the Adhyatmika, the miseries pertaining to our body and mind. Adi-Devika, which is the, miseries from the natural disturbances. And Adi-Bhautika the Bhautika, the natural disturbances, and Devika is from other living beings. So these are nobody can escape this. If you take all the miseries and put into the categories, that will fall under these 3. So next, Prabhupada explains, Supreme Personality of Godhead is the sanctioning agent. So let's read this. The whole world is struggling very hard to exist out of these miseries. But men do not know that without the sanction of the Lord, no plan or no remedial measures can actually bring about the desired peace or tranquility. The remedial measure is to cure a patient by medical treatment is useless if it is not sanctioned by the Lord. To cross the river or the ocean by a suitable boat is no remedial measure if it is not sanctioned by the Lord. We should know for certain that the Lord is the ultimate sanctioning officer, and we must therefore dedicate our attempts to the mercy of the Lord for ultimate success, or to get rid of the obstacles on the path of success. The Lord is all-pervading, all-powerful, omniscient, and omnipresent. He is the ultimate sanctioning agent for all good or bad effects. So we all know from Bhagavad Gita, there is a verse in 13th chapter, Upatrishta, Anumanta. Upatrishta is overseer, Anumanta is a permitter, Bharta is the master, Bhokta is a enjoyer, Maheshwara, Supreme Lord, Paramatmeti, Super Soul. So Krishna is saying that I am the Super Soul, I'm in everybody's heart, and I am the enjoyer, I am the master, and I oversee things and I permit. So he's a sanctioning agent. Prabhupada explains here, he gives an example, whether if, medical treatment, unless it's sanctioned by the Lord, it won't cure the patient. You can have a boat to cross over the river or ocean, but unless it's sanctioned by the Lord, it won't happen. So for ultimate success, our sanctioning officer is Supreme Personality of Godhead. So knowing that fact that we need to dedicate our services, our attempts, why we need to get the mercy of the Lord so we can remove all the obstacles in the path of our success. So that's the essence of this paragraph. Let's move on. There's more purport. It's a long purport. So we should dedicate our activities. So Prabhupada says, so first he said, hearing is the remedial measures. Next he says 3 kinds of material miseries nobody can escape. And then Krishna is a sanctioning officer, whether it's good or bad effects, he has to sanction everything. So now let's dedicate your activities. He says, Prabhupada says, we should therefore learn to dedicate our activities unto the mercy of the Lord and accept him either as impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It does not matter what one is. One must dedicate everything in the service of the Lord. So when I was reading this verse, I was thinking that, okay, so just like that, just dedicating our activities, how come it's going to get rid of all the miseries? So, in one sense, karma is binding us in the material world, samsara. But the same karma, if we dedicate to Krishna, in service of Krishna, it's liberating us. So that's what Prabhupada says, that one must dedicate everything in the service of the Lord. So the next question comes, okay, we must dedicate our activities, but I don't know how to do it. So Prabhupada also explains in the purport how to dedicate our activities. Prabhupada says that he categorizes in different profession, different people, and he says that, okay, you dedicate this one very, very, very nicely, Prabhupada writes in the purport. So I was thinking about in chapter 12, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains, he's very, Krishna is very, what we call accommodating God, flexible, very flexible. So first thing he says, fix your mind on me exclusively and remember me. If you do that, I will deliver you swiftly from the ocean of, material birth and death. So first thing is he's saying, fix your mind on me, which is called Manana Atmika Bhakti. And then he says, so can I do that? Okay, that's okay. So let's go on to the next step. He says, fix your intelligence upon me. Based on the scriptural, descriptions, contemplate on me and try to, remember me, fix your intelligence on me. It's a Smarana Atmika Bhakti. So first mind, then intelligence. Okay, then Krishna says, okay, you cannot do that. That's okay. Let's move on to the next step. The next is sadhana bhakti, bhakti yoga. He says, okay, you cannot fix your mind all the time exclusively on me. You cannot fix the intelligence. So just follow the regulative principles, using your mind and senses, doing the practical bhakti, the sadhana bhakti. That way, whenever your mind is going to the sense objects, you can try to bring it and just to fix your mind, try to fix your mind on it. So that's the third he's saying. And then, okay, so you cannot do that also. That's okay. Then now he's coming to, internal senses are over, mind, intelligence, all that over. Then let's come to the external senses. Okay, so you cannot do that. Work for me. You cannot fix your mind on me. just for my pleasure, just, work for me. Whatever activities you do, just to do it like without even your mind is not fixed on me, that's okay. But the activities, you can just do it for my pleasure. Prabhupada writes, Krishna consciousness needs, a lot of help. Like, you can help in temple construction or charity or donation or that other words. And then propagating Krishna consciousness, you can do all that. Prabhupada writes in the purport. So work for Krishna. So next step. And then even Krishna even come down below that, you cannot do that. You cannot be in Krishna consciousness by doing work and please me because of some social or some familial or family issues or social, whatever it may be. You cannot be Krishna conscious. That's okay. You do your work and then your hard-earned money, just, give up the results. It don't have to be, Krishna consciousness, but anything like a charity, whatever. That will purify your mind and that will attract you to Krishna consciousness. So those are the steps, given by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. So in this verse, the thing is you dedicate your activities, work for Krishna. And Prabhupada, very right, we all fall in this one of the category. And he very beautifully write in the purport how we can dedicate our activities. So let's read this purport, how to dedicate. If one is a learned scholar, scientist, philosopher, poet, etc., then he should employ his learning to establish the supremacy of the Lord. Because what they do, the learned scholars, scientists, that's all they do, philosopher. They learn, they try to, prove something. So Prabhupada is saying, so use that, your intelligence, the learning, not intelligence, you're learning to establish the supremacy of the Lord. Try to study the energy of the Lord in every sphere of life. Do not decry him and try to become like him or take his position simply by fragmental accumulation of knowledge. So that's about one category of people, how they can dedicate. And then Prabhupada goes on to say, if one is an administrator, statesman, warrior, politician, etc., then one should try to establish the Lord's supremacy in statesmanship. Fight for the cause of the Lord, as Sri Arjuna did. In the beginning, Sri Arjuna, the great fighter, declined to fight. But when he was convinced by the Lord that the fighting was necessary, Sri Arjuna changed his decision and fought for his cause. So that's one category of people, how they can dedicate their activities in service to Krishna. Finally, Prabhupada says, similarly, if one is a businessman, an industrialist, an agriculturalist, etc., then one should spend his hard-earned money for the cause of the Lord. Think always that the money which is accumulated is the wealth of the Lord. Wealth is considered to be the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, and the Lord is Narayana, and the husband of Lakshmi. Try to engage Lakshmi in the service of Lord Narayana and be happy. This is the way to realize the Lord in every sphere of life. And then Prabhupada writes, so finally he says that hearing transcendental pastime is the best thing. And what if one cannot? So let's read this paragraph. It's a final paragraph. The best thing is, after all, to get relief from all material activities and engage oneself completely in hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. But in case of the absence of such opportunity, one should try to engage in the service of the Lord, everything for which one has specific attraction. And that is the way of peace and prosperity. The word samsuchitam in this stanza is also significant. One should not think for a moment that the realization of Narada was a childish imagination only. It is not like that. It is so realized by the expert and erudite scholars, and that is the real import of word samsuchitam. So Prabhupada explains here, hearing is the must. So we all know the 9 processes of devotional service, starting with the hearing chanting, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Vandanam, if I say, am I saying it right? Vandanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. So Prabhupada saying hearing is the essential thing. But in case of you cannot, you don't have opportunity, try to engage in the service of the Lord. Whichever one you have attraction for, specific attraction, it doesn't matter. That is the way of peace and prosperity. And then finally, Prabhupada explained the word samsuchitam, which is the learned by the scholars. So one may think, oh, Narada Muni was a small boy and he heard from the Vedantist and he's talking, and it may not be, bona fide, or so it is not a childish imagination. Even the expert and erudite scholars also says that the hearing is the best remedial measures. So that's the end of the purport. So Prabhupada explained the three miseries, the remedial measures, and who is the samsuchitam, and how we can dedicate our karma or prescribed activities to the service of the Lord. So for the sake of discussion, next 20 minutes, I was thinking next verse is going to talk about very, more in clearly or elaborately how exactly karma, who is binding one, but can bind one in the material world, also can liberate if it is used for or dedicated to Krishna service. So, so I thought maybe we can talk about, the three folds of miseries, and how is all connected, how we get into that, and all the reactions we go through. So when I was thinking like that, so how in the material world that we get all the miseries? How? So His Holiness Ramapada Swami Maharaj used to say, if you want to get out of the room, you need to know which way you came from. Because unless we know where we came from or which way we came from, we cannot get out. It doesn't matter how we got there, because sometimes we try to think, how the pure spirit soul can fall from the spiritual world. How is that possible? Somehow or other we did, instead of trying to figure that out, let's get out. So, and we need to know where we came from. So I thought we'll discuss a little bit about the klesha, the miseries how it all, come upon. So my reference is from Nectar of Devotion again this week also, from Rupa Goswami, Kleshagni. So in Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami explains the 6 benefits or 6 characteristics of the pure devotional service. If one takes up the bhakti, the pure devotional service, what are the 6 main benefits they get? So the first one is the relief from distress, Kleshagni. Klesha means miseries, Kleshagni means relief from miseries. So we thought we'll discuss about that a little bit for the next 15 minutes. So here's a question. I like to have a one-word answer. What is the cause for our suffering in the material world? Anybody would like to answer? Let's give one.
Desire.
So I heard the word desire. Okay. But let me say this. Prabhupada says we are not stone. We are living being. We cannot be desireless. So we have to have a desire. So what is the root cause for our suffering? The desire. Envy. Okay. Any other one-word answer I'm looking for?
Maybe birth itself.
Sorry, Mataji.
Birth.
False
Birth
ego.
is one of the suffering, but what is the root cause for suffering?
False ego.
Forgetfulness, Mataji.
Ragadvesha, Mataji.
Sorry, I heard 3 things. One is
False ego.
Ragadvesha.
Okay, I heard false ego too. So
No, I said the forgetfulness, Mataji.
Forgetfulness of Krishna. Yes, disconnecting ourselves from Krishna. But why that happens? That's a false ego. I heard the answer false ego. I think Arun Prabhu said that. So that's the answer I was looking for. Not false ego. There is one more. I'm looking for exactly not the false ego. False ego comes the next step. Why false ego comes? Why we have false ego?
We think that we are the body.
Yes, that's a false ego. We think instead of thinking I am the soul, I think I am the body. That's a false ego. So, but what causes the false ego? Because, okay, let me say this. We are pure spirit soul. We are full of knowledge. But when we are full of knowledge, why we think we are, why we forget that? What is the cause? I'm looking for one more word. I see some chat.
Lal Prabhu is saying in the chat, avidya.
Yes, thank you. Avidya. Avidya is the answer I was looking for. So avidya. Avidya is the ignorance. So ignorance is the root cause. So what are we ignorant about? And Narayan Prabhu already answered, the ignorance of our true ego. Because ego, we cannot separate the ego from us. Ego is there. It's the I conception. Like I am, that will be there. But instead of I am the soul, we think I am the body. When we say I am the soul, soul is the eternal servant of Krishna, which meant to serve Krishna, which is a constitutional position. So it has to be connected with the absolute truth. When that disconnect happens, because of avidya, because of the ignorance, instead of having a true ego, we get into the false ego. And the false ego is very, very, complicated. We can understand our computers, cell phones, and everything, but the false ego, very, very complicated. So to get it off. So false ego is thinking that I am the body. I am a female. I am a male. I am an engineer. I'm a doctor. I'm an American. I'm a this, I'm that, and that. So when we have so many, we identify with our body, so many bodily identification, but they are all temporary. They are not eternal. And those temporary things, we try to satisfy, or we try to live up to those bodily identification. And when we do that, the desire. So the desire comes, yes, when Madhuri Prabhu said desire, and that is not a spiritual desire. It is a material desire, because we are trying to satisfy our, the temporary bodily designations, and we act upon that. So any material desire, which is more or less in the material world, is sinful. And that's what we get into trouble. So the avidya leads to desire, which is a material desire. And then we act upon it, which is sinful. And that causes klesha. So that's klesha. So now let's see this beautiful verse from Bhagavatam, Kunti Maharani. She says that in one shloka itself, what is the cause of miseries and what do we need to do? Very beautiful verse. Bhavesmin klesha mananam avidya kama karma bihi shravana smarana arhani karishyan iti kechane. So she's saying that one who has the material desires, which is, one who is going through the material suffering, klesha, mananam, because of what? Avidya. First is avidya, ignorance. Kama, desires. Karma, which is the fruitive activities. The cause are avidya leads to desire, and then the fruitive activities. So how do we get rid of that material pangs? By shravana and smarana. Shravanam, hearing, smarana, and then remembering, and then arhani is worshipping. That's a way to get relief from the material miseries. So beautiful verse. So let's understand, okay, so I am in the material world, I had this, so how do I get rid of this? So so the first thing is how it's a sequence or the pattern, how the klesha comes. First is avidya, we already discussed, ignorance of our true self, and which leads to papa bijam. Bijam means sin. Bija means seed, papa means sin. So when we are ignorant of ourself, the true self, true identity, we have the material desire, which is the seed of sin, papa bijam, which leads to papam, sinful reaction, and which leads to klesha, suffering. So as I said, in material world, the material desire means sense gratification, because when we have so many, bodily identification, temporary identification, we try to fulfill that, and that is sense gratification, and it is more or less sinful. The same thing can be turned into spiritual if we serve the Lord. So now we know the sequence, how starting from avidya, the klesha happens. When one takes up to the bhakti, the whole chain get destroyed. So let's start from papam. The bhakti destroys the papam, which is sinful reaction. The bhakti also destroys the seed, the desire in our heart. The bhakti also destroys avidya, ignorance. The whole thing gets smashed. So there's no suffering when we take up to bhakti process. So let's start with the papam first, the sinful reaction, and then we'll go backwards, the bijam and the avidya. So papam, our sinful reaction, has two types, aprarabdha and prarabdha. So aprarabdha means somebody has done some sin, but it has not manifested. The reaction has not manifested yet. So the example is, Prabhupada gives an example of a criminal. A criminal does a criminal act, but he has not yet caught by the police. So he has not yet gone through the punishment. So he has done, but is awaiting distress or awaiting suffering. That's a prarabdha, not yet mature, or not yet, the reaction has not been mature yet. Prarabdha is he has done some sinful activity. It's already matured, and the reaction he's going through in the current life or at present. So Prabhupada gives many examples. If somebody is going through a chronic disease, that's an example of previous sinful action, which is they're going through reaction now. If somebody has going through like a stress of legal implication, a lot of stress. So that's one of the example of already manifested reactions, prarabdha. If somebody born in a low family, like low birth, lack of education, also if somebody doesn't look very good, like ugliness, also prarabdha. So they're already going through. So the next question is how the aprarabdha and the prarabdha both get destroyed by bhakti. So some examples some stories or example we can discuss from Bhagavad Gita. So bhakti destroys both aprarabdha and prarabdha. If somebody is waiting for distress or somebody is already going through distress, both get destroyed when one takes up the bhakti. It's called aprarabdha haratvam. So in the Bhagavatam, Krishna says to Uddhava in the 11th canto that, my dear Uddhava, just as the blazing fire turns the firewood into ashes, similarly, devotion unto me completely burns to ashes sins committed by my devotees. So here, the example of the fire is compared to the devotional service, and the firewood is compared to the sinful activities. So to the fire, if the fire is nicely, going blazing, and how much ever you add the firewood, it's going to get ashes, right? It's going to burn to ashes. Similarly, if somebody is practicing devotional service, any amount of sinful reactions will get, burned into ashes. Of course, once they take up to the Krishna conscious or bhakti process, the devotees won't, sin again or try not to sin again, knowingly. But any amount of reaction will get burned by the blazing fire of the devotional service. That's the power of a devotional service or bhakti. So let's give talk about an example of the prarabdha papam, or prarabdha karma. Somebody done something, they're supposed to go through the reaction, but they escape because of taking up to the bhakti process. So the example is from Canto 9. There is a pastime. There is a Kshatriya named called Prishadhara. His job was to guard the cowshed. And according to the order of his spiritual master Vashishta, so he guards the cowshed every night. So one day, it was a rainy day, so there was not much light. And he was guarding the cowshed, protecting the cows. And the tiger somehow entered the cowshed. And because there was not much visibility, so he took up his sword and tried to kill the tiger, but by mistakenly, unknowingly, he cut off the head of the cow. So, but the tip of the sword injures the ear of the tiger, so the tiger runs away. But then by morning, they come to know the cow is dead. Killing cow is, it's the biggest sin. So Vashishta cursed him. This bird that Pirdasha, I'm saying it wrong, Pirdasra. So this birth, he was a Kshatriya family, right? So Vashishta says that next birth you born as a Shudra, you will born in a Shudra family because of killing the cow. So that's a little degraded from the previous birth. So this Kshatriya, what he does is that he immediately takes up to the bhakti process. He started worshiping. He's completely in meditation and doing devotional service to Krishna, and he perfect himself, and he becomes a great saint. And he goes to the forest, and he eventually died. But at that life itself, he goes to spiritual world. So even though he got the curse because of the unknowingly committed sin, it has not manifested. The reaction did not manifest because he took up the process of bhakti. So that's the example of prarabdha papam. That's one example. In Brahma Samhita, there is a verse. It says that only the devotees does not undergo the loss of karma. the karma will act upon the materialist or non-devotees. The devotees, let me read the translation. Those who engage in devotional service are unaffected by the results of their material activities. Otherwise, everyone from the smallest microbe up to the king of heaven, Indra, is subjected to the laws of karma. A pure devotee, being always engaged in the service of the Lord, is exempt from these laws. So next, let's move on. Again, this is an example of aprarabdha karma, aprarabdha papam. In the beginning, one of the reasons Arjuna said that he don't want to fight is he had the fear of incurring sinful reaction by killing. But Krishna said, you fight for my cause. So because Arjuna fought for Krishna's cause, there was no sinful reaction. So that's also an example of prarabdha karma. So next move on. So next thing is prarabdha karma. That is aprarabdha karma. This is prarabdha, which means somebody done some sinful act. The reaction already manifested. They're going through suffering, but then they take up the bhakti and then the whole thing get nullified. So prarabdha haratvam. Example. This is a verse from Canto 3. This is the conversation between Mother Devahuti and Lord Kapila Dev. In that, Mother Devahuti says to Lord Kapila, I'll read the translation here. To say nothing of spiritual advancement of person who see the Supreme Person face to face. Even a person born in a family of dog eaters immediately becomes eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices if he once utters the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or chants about him, hears about his pastimes, offers him obeisances, or even remembers him. So let's talk about this verse. So if somebody is born in a dog-eater family, which is a very low-graded family, low birth, that means they're going through some reaction from their previous or whatever lifetime. They have done some sin. And for that reaction, they have taken birth in a low family and become a dog eater. And for them to perform a Vedic sacrifice in the same lifetime, that means they got rid of the sinful reaction. So who does the Vedic sacrifices? The person who is born in a family of a Brahmana who went through all the purificatory process, right? So if somebody is born in a family of a Brahmana, that means that's a good birth. So for them to do Vedic sacrifices, it's right. But for a person who eats, dog eater family, but when they utter once the holy name of the Lord or chants about him here, not even face to, they don't have to even say face to face, just chanting the name of the Lord, they get purified, and it's equal to going through all the purificatory process, and they're elevated to performing the Vedic sacrifices. That means that all their sinful reactions, they're gone, destroyed by the process of bhakti. So that's prarabdha karma, which is already manifested, but they got rid of it by taking up the bhakti process. So now we saw, let me see if I have any other example. Okay. Can anybody tell what is the example of this one, Narada Muni's life, 3 lifetimes? Is it aprarabdha, prarabdha karma? Nullified by bhakti process. So I have the picture of 3 lifetimes of Narada Muni. First, he was a Gandharva, then a son of a maid servant, then Narada Muni.
Prarabdha, Mataji, right?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Yes, so he made an offense when he was a Gandharva. He made an offense of criticizing, or I see some chat, let me check. He made some offense by criticizing the Sankirtan party, or Sankirtan was going on by the demigods. So he was cursed. So, and then he took a birth. So it's already manifested. The whatever sin he done, that's manifested, and he took a birth as a son of a maid servant, which is a low birth. But then he took up to the bhakti process, and then he became Narada Muni. Of course, it's the next day of Kalpa. but still it's example of prarabdha papam. That's my understanding. I just, because we are talking about Narada Muni's life, I thought I'll add that point here. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, very well-known verse, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshashami Ma Suchaha. So he, Krishna says that he takes charge of one surrender unto him. He makes him immune. If we take, if we surrender to Krishna, we become immune to all reaction of sinful activities. So that's I just wanted to mention that here. But in the course of trying to figure out, we don't want to spend our time trying to figure out, okay, so maybe I'm going through this, maybe I've done that, maybe she's going through, or he's going through that, maybe they have done something. That's what we don't want to analyze those things, because the sinful reactions are so subtle. 8.4 million species of lives. We have gone through many lifetimes, many reactions, maybe the intricacies of karma and the papam, the reactions, all very, very complicated. So it's hard to understand. So I have the example of here, a rice in a barrel. So the barrel has a hole in the bottom. Imagine the barrel has a hole in the bottom. And if you're adding rice from the top, the hole is in the bottom. So the rice which is added in the beginning will keep coming up, right? And then you keep adding. So karma is like that, the reactions to the karma, it's like that. So the more we add, it keep coming. So, and we don't want to try to understand that. So we just need to know sinful reactions are very subtle, and it's take time to manifest, and we cannot ascertain their cause and fruition. So the only thing is engagement in bhakti is the practical injection to stop all the fructifications of the seeds of sinful activities. So for example, we get vaccination for many diseases from childbirth to, until we die. The disease is not there in the body. There's no manifestation of disease or nothing. We have not exposed or anything, but the vaccine is given to prevent it. The bhakti is the same way, we take up the bhakti process. It works as a vaccine to, protect us or prevent from the seeds of sinful activities. So we talked about the, papam, how bhakti destroys. Next, okay, so the reactions, whether it's manifested or not manifested, get destroyed by bhakti once takes up the bhakti, but the desire is in the heart. What do we do with that? Even bhakti destroys that desire, the seed, bijaharatvam. None of the other processes can do that. So let's see an example. It's from Canto 6. I'll read the translation. Although one may neutralize the reaction of sinful life through austerity, charity, vows, and other such methods, these pious activities cannot uproot the material desires in one's heart. However, if one serves the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, he's immediately freed from all such contaminations. So I have the example of a tree here, which is uprooted. And if you see that, the leaves and twigs and branches, if somebody done something and they want to nullify and neutralize the reaction to the sinful life, they can do something like, they can do austerity. Okay, I will do some austerity. I will fast this many days. I'll go to temple, or I will donate to orphanage. I will donate to the hospital or build a hospital. So many methods are there. Yes, that may neutralize the reactions of what the sinful activities. Like it's Christians, they go to weekly confession, and then they go and try to confess, and then they think they got rid of all the sinful reactions for their acts, and then they come back and they sin again. So right. So that's like cutting the branches and twigs and leaves of a tree, but the root is still there. The root is the desire to make that sin again. Like, right? I have patients, they smoke, and then they have a lung cancer, and then they get treatment, cancer treatment, all the chemo, radiation and everything, but the desire in the heart is still there, and they still smoke. Sometimes the patients have a hard time quitting the smoking because the desire is so rooted in the heart. The heart is not clean. Unless the heart get clean, it's hard to give up. And the bhakti cleanses the heart. So Prabhupada gives an example of somebody's overindulgence in sex. So they get the diseases because of that. They get treatment, but then the desire is still there. They go back and do it again. right? And the same example of elephants, bathing nicely, thoroughly in the clean water, coming out to the land and pouring the dirt on themselves again. As long as the heart is not clean, the desire is going to be there and it's going to keep happening. Whatever method we try to do and try to nullify the reaction, it's not going to work. The only way to uproot that desire is to purify our heart, and that bhakti does it. All right. So, so again, one more example from Bhagavatam. We know from Ajamila's story, he was so much, did a lot of, he was born in a Brahmana family, but then did a lot of sins throughout his life. But then at the end, unknowingly chanted the name of Narayana, not unknowingly, he was calling out his son, but still he was saved. He was protected from the death, and he was given a second chance, and his heart got purified. So that's because of the taking up the bhakti process. So the sinful desire seed can be removed only by achieving Krishna consciousness. So I just have this one slide. I'll take a few seconds to explain this one. So between aprarabdha karma and prarabdha karma, there's stages. It's just unmanifested and then manifested. In between, there is two more stages are there, which is kutam and bijam. This bijam is different than the other bijam, the desire we have. So aprarabdha papam it is not fructified, it is not manifested. And then kutam it's ready to produce a seed. It's coming out. Like, for example, when you plant something, there's empty land there, nothing there. So, and then you put a seed in, and then it sprouts slowly. And then it became branches, leaves, and it became a big tree, right? Similarly, aprarabdha, and then there's a kutam, ready to produce a seed. And then the bijam is in the form of impression. It's about to be experienced. Like, from the seed, the sprouts are coming out. So it's called vasanamayam. So it's in the form of impression. It's about to be experienced, and then prarabdha. Prarabdha is, we are experiencing that. So this is between the aprarabdha and prarabdha, and these all get destroyed by the bhakti process. I just wanted to say this. This is a verse from Padma Purana. It says, aprarabdha phalam pabam, kutam bijam, falonmukam. Falonmukam is prarabdha. Kramena iva praliyate Vishnu bhakti ratatmanam. So I'll just read the last sentence here. In any case, all type of sinful reactions are vanquished one after another if a person engages in the devotional service of the Lord. It doesn't matter whether they are in the aprarabdha stage or kutam stage or bijam stage or prarabdha stage, whatever may be, all get destroyed by one who takes up the service of Lord Vishnu. And then the material desire also, the bija also get destroyed. So now finally we have the avidya. Avidya also get destroyed by the process of bhakti. Avidya haratvam. So this is a verse from 4th canto. By serving the lotus feet, that is by bhakti, from the stage of sadhana or practice of sadhya or perfection, devotees can overcome the tight knot of ignorance and false ego, carrying unlimited impressions of karma. So the knot is compared to the, the false ego, and the false ego is because of ignorance. And by taking up the bhakti process, one can, remove that knot. The knot can get broken by Krishna consciousness. There's one more verse. Let me go to the next one. So this analogy, I really like this analogy. This is from Padma Purana, that bhakti burns avidya by vidya. Avidya is ignorance, by vidya is knowledge. So when we practice bhakti, we get knowledge. There's a verse from Bhagavatam, very famous verse, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayochitaha Jana Adya Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Ahetukam. Jnanam and Vairagyam. That's the byproducts of bhakti. One by practicing bhakti, one get jnanam, knowledge, and detachment. So bhakti burns the avidya by vidya, by knowledge that appears by itself by practice of bhakti. We don't have to endeavor. It's just the product of bhakti. Even though one does not desire it. It is like the forest fire burning up a snake. So in the forest, when there's a fire, The animals with the four legs animals, who runs, they can run away from the fire. They can try to flee, but then the snakes get burnt out, right? So the snakes are compared to ignorance. They cannot escape. So the same way, when we practice bhakti, even if you don't want knowledge, it just happens. You become knowledgeable enough to burn the avidya, which is the cause of the false ego, which is the reason for all the miseries we go through. Beautiful one analogy, I like that. But then the question comes, okay, I have been practicing bhakti for so many years, or I see devotees practicing bhakti for so many years. They still go through miseries, the 3 types of miseries. They still get coronavirus, they still get, cancer, they still die in an accident. There's so many things happens. How is that? So, so there is 3 things. 1, aparad, anartha, and it's a mercy of the Lord. When one takes up the bhakti, they think that the sufferings are not, punishments. They take it as a mercy of the Lord, and they think like, I have to suffer more than this because of Krishna's mercy. This is very so little, right? That's what we think. Even though we take up the bhakti, sometimes there is traces of anarthas in our heart. And in order to get it off, that's a token of Krishna's, award, like, he wants us to completely purify ourselves. So Prabhupada gives an example of a fan, like, fan is going fast and you unplug it. It doesn't stop quickly. It takes some time, slow down and then stop, right? Similarly, when we take up the bhakti process, also there is traces of anarthas, unwanted, tendencies are there. So to get rid of that, there may be seemingly like a suffering going on, but that's for the purification of the devotee. So there's 3 types. One is if a person is a non-devotee or materialist, they're going through suffering. That is because of loss of karma, because that's because of the reaction, loss of karma. If somebody is practicing bhakti and they're going through suffering, that means that's purification is happening. That's the mercy of Krishna. Purification is happening. But somebody is a pure devotee, eternal associate, a pure devotee, and they're seemingly going through suffering for our eyes, that's because of glorification of them. Or to set an example, or Krishna is using them as example for us, to teach us, like, Pandavas, why they have to go through so many suffering. Queen Kunti Devi, right? Draupadi, Bhishma Dev, Arjuna. There's so many, pure devotees of the Lord, seemingly they undergo suffering. But, Prahlad Maharaj, so many. But he didn't take those as a punishment. He was taking that as, impetus. The suffering was to remember him, remember Krishna for him. So for the pure devotees, it's a glorification. For the practicing devotees, it is purification. And sometimes aparad, we, even though we are, trying to practice bhakti, we make some, aparads, offenses, knowingly or unknowingly, we shouldn't be making knowingly, unknowingly, seva aparad, nama aparad, and all that. So to get purified, that sometimes we may go through some difficulties. So that's about that. I just want to, because that question may come, if bhakti destroys everything, why am I going through all this? So, all right, so last verse. So I just want to connect. I know I took a D2 kind of talk a little bit today, starting from, miseries, and then we have to offer our activities to Krishna. Hearing is a remedy. And then we took a D2 a little bit about the miseries and how it's all sinful reaction manifest. So finally, we are going back to the hearing again. A beautiful verse from Bhagavatham, Shrunvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayanti Stohi Abhadrani Vidunoti Sugar Satam. Let me read the translation. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So hearing is very important. Out of 9 processes of devotional service, we can take up anything, but hearing and chanting is the essential one, because Krishna himself takes up a broomstick and mops and cleans our hearts so nicely, and we get rid of all the passion and ignorance, all the modes of nature become situated in the goodness, and then we get attracted to Krishna and we hear more and more. That's a way for purification and then get rid of the miseries. And then the last thing may come. Okay, so I am doing the bhakti process, but the miseries are still coming. The miseries will be there. When we take up the bhakti, the coronavirus is not going to go away. We are still going to still get affected by that, right? So how do we see that is we will get absorbed in spiritual activities so much that material things, and then we will have the conviction that Krishna will protect us, that those things will not matter to us anymore. Of course, we won't be foolish and not take any steps. We will take, one time they asked Prabhupada, you said, someone asked Prabhupada, you said your devotees are always protected by Krishna, then why should they wear seat belts when they are driving in the car, And Prabhupada said, yeah, Krishna protect them all the time, but they're not stupids. They have to wear the seat belt. So we have to take our measures to protect, because we need our body to serve Krishna and connect our soul to Krishna. So we need that. So we take precautions, but then those things don't impact us. Like, with bhakti, our conscious gets so elevated, or supposed to get elevated as we mature, those things doesn't impact us. So, all right. So summary is, after reading the purport, we talked about suffering is due to ignorance of our true ego. And the ignorance leads to papa bijam, and then papam. And then bhakti destroys both aprarabdha karma and prarabdha karma. Bhakti also destroys the bijam, the desire in the heart. Bhakti also burns the avidya, and the best remedy is hearing. So one introspection is, we can think about this. How does engaging in our sadhana bhakti gives us relief from distress? So we can write down our journey of sadhana bhakti till today, where we started and where we are today. And we can start the sequence of starting from avidya. We were ignorant, and how we had the sinful desire, and how bhakti helped us to curb the seed of desire. Just as some practical, like a writing helps. So why I use the word sadhana process here is, for us to get relief from the distress, we don't have to be in a bhava stage or prema stage. Rupa Goswami says in the Nectar of Devotion, the sadhana bhakti, the 6 characteristics, out of the 6 characteristics, the sadhana bhakti itself, the very beginning stage itself, the first benefit is we start getting relief from distress. And then Shubhada, all auspiciousness in the sadhana bhakti. And then the next 2 benefits happens in the bhava bhakti, and then all 6 happens in the prema bhakti. So even sadhana bhakti itself, we should feel the relief from distress. So if we are connecting ourselves to Krishna. So that's the end of today's class. Thank you all for joining today, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I will stop here. Forgive me if I have said anything incorrectly out of my ignorance and limited knowledge, and we can take any comments or questions at this time. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the wonderful class, Mataji. So one question, Mataji, I think we discussed Narada's lifetimes, right? Like, Gandharva, and then I think he was cursed to be born as a Sudra. Like when he was, when he was a Sudra, right? So he served the devotees sincerely. That's why he got bhakti and he got elevated. So how did he get the association of devotees, Mataji? Like, was there a reason behind that? The first place, getting that association of the devotees, right? So is there any reason to that, Mataji?
So you're trying to understand, okay, all of a sudden, so for example, to take yourself, there is millions of people out there in the world. How come you have association with the devotees and you're practicing bhakti? That's a mercy. That's what I would say. It's, if you see in the bhakti process, I think a few classes ago, we discussed that Shraddha is the first stage. But then even before Shraddha, where does Shraddha come from? Association of devotees. Then Shraddha starts. Then we get association again. Then Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anatana Vritti, all those stages happens. But how does one get that association? You know, like for example, I was born in somewhere in a small village of India, South India. I never had any association with anybody, any devotees when I was in India until I come over here. Even I lived in Calcutta for 3 years where Prabhupada was born. And I didn't have any association. And then after coming over here, I was doing demigod worship, Kali worship, and then Ganesh worship and Shiva worship. And then I come over here and then I met devotees, and then I'm into bhakti process now. You can ask me, how did we get the association? What played that role? I think that's mercy of devotees, mercy of Krishna. So there is a verse in 3rd canto. It says, if Krishna wants to reclaim some soul from the material world, he will send the spiritual master on their way. Beautiful, right? So it's a mercy of Krishna. That's all I can say. How that first association happened out of all millions of people in the world, how we are fortunate, at least in this lifetime, to get associated with Krishna. So.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. It's 8:07. If any questions, or we can end today.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the very wonderful class, very beautiful points, stressing on a lot of beautiful things. I was remembering when you were talking about the three Trapatrayam, right? Trapatrayam, the three Adi Bhautika, Adi Daivika. So Prabhupada also had in the Canto 7, Chapter 15, which I was summarizing. In that, there's a verse which also nicely says the same thing. By getting freedom from envy, one can counter suffering from other living entities. And then you can't really avoid the sufferings inflicted by providence. And therefore, when suffering comes, one should fully absorb in chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Prabhupada says. And one can avoid sufferings from the body and mind by practicing yoga. So Prabhupada, the bhakti process has all those ingredients, to get us, free from envy and get us, devoted. So all those things can be attacked very nicely. One question I had, Mataji, when the analogy of the firewood, the Uddhava Gita verse you were quoting. There's so many different analogy of firewood we hear, right? The dry firewood and wet firewood. So if firewood, just for my understanding, if the firewood is the sins and fire is the devotional service, it is burning it up. We should not be adding more sins. Just because it is going to burn it up, it is not going, that's
exactly.
So it is more what we have is consumed by that and purify us, but it's not like the other way around.
Yes. Yeah. Once we take up the process, we don't want to keep adding to that fire. And then that means that's not, bhakti. So yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. And if that's all today, Ramacharya Prabhu, you have any announcements to make?
No, Mataji, nothing much. So, does this verse talks about Niskam Karma Yoga or is talking about Bhakti Yoga?
The particular verse actually talks about Karma Yoga. So I have to apologize here. First, I usually read the previous verses and then following verses. And then I try to stay related to the verse and honoring that verse. I don't try to deviate. But after I did, I read the translation a few times, trying to understand what they're emphasizing, what is emphasized there. But I realized that after my direction took a different way after I did the PowerPoint and everything. And then I went back and read the verse again. And also I went back to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. Then I realized it's actually talking about karma yoga.
Niskam.
How, yes, Niskama karma yoga. Yes, how when one offer their activities to Krishna, the prescribed activities, that it helps them to get rid of the miseries. So it's actually Niskama karma yoga, but I totally did not realize until last night.
No, that's fine. Because the beautiful purport for this verse is chapter 4 and 5 of Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, karma yoga, right? Niskama karma yoga, right.
That's what Krishna is saying, transcendental knowledge, right? Get into, work for me, right? Without phalam tattva, don't be attached with the results. Oh no, thank you, Mataji. And the second thing, Patanjali says that cause of suffering are 5, and avidya, asmita, raga, bhaya, and then anivesha. There are 5 causes of suffering. These are the 5 causes which makes human beings suffer. And avidya for sure is on top of it. But there is also asmita, which is false ego, and then raga and dvesha. And then the 5th one, Patanjali says that it's attachment to ourself,
Right.
anivesha. And he says that we are so attached for the death or the pain or pleasure that we can foresee coming in our life. We start acting in a very ignorant way. So, he touched upon a lot of good points. Ultimately, Niskam Karma Yoga leads to bhakti, right? Some part of Niskam Karma Yoga, as long as the goal is sure, it's bhakti yoga. So, beautiful class. Thank you so much. I know you put a lot of your time and beautiful slides and you quote from different places, Mataji. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm and continuous support. You have been the backbone for this program. Dandavat Pranams. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. So tomorrow in Sunday feast, we have a yajna that's going to happen. And I think devotees are getting the opportunity to be the sponsor. So if you like, anybody who are on the call would like to be part of that sponsorship, then please come and let us know, or let whether we Mataji know about it. Also, we have started going for Harinam. It's one of the powerful service. Last Saturday we were there, and group of young devotee, I call everybody devotee, they all are devotee, by the way. So the group of young people, they came and they started, dancing. And we have some videos of them dancing. And we felt very, very, kind of enthused and very happy to see those soul dancing and hearing holy name. So this is very powerful service that we can do to give holy name to the people who are not aware in whichever format we can. So if one of you or any one of you has time, if you like to come and be part of Harinam tonight, please come and be part of it. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna, so much for your continuous support. This has been a beautiful program and hope we can continue it. Thank you so much. Dandavat Pranams to everybody. Please forgive me. Keep on forgiving me for my mistakes. Thank you. Dandavat. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We'll chant the Vaishnava Pranam. Vancha kalpatarubhyecha kripa sindhubhye evacha paditanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Nice reading. Wonderful, lessons.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Manjira.
Mataji, I had a small question.
Yes, Mataji.
If it's okay. Mataji, so I'm just wondering, like, the the thing you laid out is so nice, like bhakti process. I'm just, my question is like, a person who is conditioned, like, caught up in the laws of karma, all the things you said, prarabdha, all the kutam bijam, the intelligence is not honed enough to prioritize, to hear, chant, because it always keeps guiding in a more lower forms of even mode of goodness, but something lower. So how can one like rise? So it takes its time, is that right? I mean, just slowly getting over and purifying.
Yes, Mataji. So there's 2 points I wanted to say here. One is, somehow, even if the intelligence is not, sufficient or, equipped to follow all this, somehow or other, if they can work for Krishna using their external senses, that'll help them to get, go about. But then again, the knowledge will automatically come too, eventually. And it may seem like it's a very gradual process, nothing happened immediately. But if you look at by the face of eternity, what we are going through is actually in a super fast mode, getting rid of all the anarthas and, taking a bhakti process and because there's so many, 8.4 million species of life, and there's in the face of eternity, our lifetime is very small, but then the way the bhakti process helps us so quickly, actually it's very fast. And I know for people who, it may seem like, they are not equipped, but as long as they can take up something, it's going to help them. So, it may not happen in one lifetime. That's okay. Even if it doesn't happen in this lifetime, next lifetime or in few lifetimes, they are going to, Krishna is going to give them what they lack. So, but again, it may sound like a little discouraging, or we have to wait for a few more lifetimes. That's okay. As I said, in the face of eternity, the few lifetimes is not bad. Instead of going through 8.4 million species, few lifetimes is not bad, right? Of course, our goal is to, try to get out of here by this lifetime, but even if it's take a few more lifetime, I think it's okay still. That's what my thing is, Mataji. Hopefully this helps you, but I answered the question, so.
Yes, Mataji, thank you. Just the point I got is like holding on to something strong, so, and keep working, so that way, it slowly progresses more.
Yeah, right. For example, like, Prabhupada in the last part of purport, he says, even one cannot hear. He's giving another option. Whatever attracts you, whatever you have inclination for. There's so many devotional processes. This lifetime, you're not inclined to hear or chant, there's other options too. So whatever attracts you, take up that. And somehow, it will help. It will help. The purification will happen, and we will go up in the ladder slowly. But this Kali Yuga, the process is hearing and chanting, so that's good. But if one cannot take up whatever they're inclined to, whatever their proclivities, they can take up that process and get perfected. So.
Okay, Mataji, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Gopal Prabhu, for the darshan of the